So what that's done is unleashed so many of the larger alt tokens that launched in similar ways to XRP that should not be deemed as security, and that's going to make the space more investable. At the margin, it shows that the regulators are overreaching. Now, we don't have that around elsewhere in the world because most of the regulators elsewhere have been reasonably decent about crypto, but the US was the one that weren't. Gensler was really attacking the space. So what that's done is unleashed so many of the larger alt tokens that launched in similar ways to XRP that should not be deemed as security, and that's going to make the space more investable. At the margin, it allows others to enter into the space. We saw XRP get relisted by Coinbase immediately. Okay, that's a big statement. It means that institutions will be more comfortable around it. That allows more people into the space. So people who might have been nervous of Solana or some of the others may look at this now and say, look, the probability of those being called a security is now becoming much smaller by the day, and therefore the risk profile of owning these things is much lower.
It's very fascinating to see how quickly things move in the cryptocurrency space. One ruling can just completely change the sentiment in the space. And of course, a lot of this recent bullish sentiment has been kicked off by Blackrock and what they did by filing for a Bitcoin ETF. And this is going to add a lot of fuel to that fire. So what's your thoughts around the Bitcoin ETF situation? Does this XRP really make it more likely we're going to get those Bitcoin ETFs? And maybe was it just inevitable once BlackRock entered the game, they were always going to get a Bitcoin ETF?
So my personal opinion, and look, I know nothing, is that Gary Gensler was under a lot of fire politically because of saying no to everything. And he had said that Bitcoin was not a security. So therefore it becomes really difficult not to allow or to appease the politicians by saying, look, I've passed the bloody Bitcoin ETF. At least I've done something. I'm comfortable with Bitcoin. So my guess is he gave the nod to BlackRock and said, listen, I need to do something. We're going to do this. And they've obviously have an open conversation with the SEC. The SEC had given the guidance as we will accept this if you do this. So they all did it. What was really amazing within that, bit of humble pie, that the SEC is suing Coinbase while at the same time are going to approve them as a major part of the mechanism of the ETF. And it kind of shows the incongruity of this ridiculous situation they found themselves in. Then you add the XRP ruling, and it makes it really hard for them to stop some of this stuff. So, I think Gensler probably comes under more political pressure because of what's just happened as well. It kind of fuels the politicians, the pro-crypto politicians were like, this is not sustainable, and Gensler's opinion appears to be wrong. So the overreach argument. So overall, these are really good things for the space. Now, the Bitcoin ETF, I've always said the ETF doesn't matter unless the market has momentum. If it has momentum, it becomes a sucking sound of bringing in RAAs in the United States and individual investors and pension plans and others. And lo and behold, we're in the middle of crypto spring where things are starting to really warm up. And that sound of FOMO you hear in the distance is thundering closer and closer. And that's going to bring these people in. So if we continue the way we've been going and prices are rising and let's say Bitcoin's at 40,000 by the time the ETF comes in, there's going to be a blind panic because everybody kind of knows that it's very cyclical as an asset. And that when the cycle goes, it can have tremendous returns. So I think that's going to be in the back of many people's minds who are out of the market right now. And with the Bitcoin ETF, they're going to be more enticed by it. So look, it is very positive. And that capital flow that comes into the space, let's say $10 billion comes in the ETF, whatever, that money then flows into the space. People take profit in their original Bitcoin, it gets reinvested into ETH or Solana or whatever else. And then before you know it, recycles into NFTs because all of these digital assets is a kind of global economy, a separate global economy made up of smaller economies like ETH and Bitcoin. And once you have new foreign direct investment into an economy, things boom. And that's what's going to happen.
It's very interesting last year, Blackrock launched their private Bitcoin fund. And I was saying at the time, like, you just wait. Blackrock almost timed the bottom of the market with their Bitcoin fund. I said, BlackRock's got something coming. And here they are. BlackRock did indeed have something coming. Now, how has this changed, if at all, your positioning on Bitcoin? If I remember correctly, you didn't have much Bitcoin still in your portfolio. Is that still holding true? And has this recent Bitcoin ETF news changed any of that for you?
No, I mean, I'm not much of a trader, so I take a long-term strategic position. My view for a long time is while I like Bitcoin, I'm more predisposed towards the broader ecosystem itself, because I think the whole of Web3 and crypto is a much larger thing than just a store of value money component, which is an important part of that in itself. And so therefore, I've tended to have ETH as my larger bet, and I've had that for a long time, because my thesis is these things are all valued on Metcalfe's law, which is network effects, and that's the number of people who use it and then the number of applications really that go on. Now, ETH's equation within that is there's actually more users, the amount of activity is higher because of all the applications, but the sizes of the transactions are smaller. But because so much is being built on top, the network effects grow over time. So over time, I expect it to outperform. But in each bull market, there's another something that does really well. And my eye is on Solana because it's got a large ecosystem, a lot of developer activity, a lot of applications layer tools. Now, does that work or not? I don't really know, but I think it's a reasonable probability bet that it's like kind of ETH was in 2018-19, came from the dust down 97% and survived. You know, the Lindy effect of surviving a massive bear market, you know, with all the FTX stuff is a good thing. Could it be another ecosystem that takes fire? Of course, and many will. So it's just a very interesting time. One of the things that I try and focus people's mind on as they get a bit lost in day-to-day price action is $65 billion of venture capital money went into this space in 2020 and 2021. The products that were built are going to be coming out in this bull market. Mm-hmm. So if you remember the last bull market, it's like DeFi, NFTs, social tokens. What's it going to be this time around? We don't know, but there's going to be a lot of stuff because a lot of money went into some really smart teams who were building all sorts of applications and ecosystems.
It's actually been impressive to see some of the things, the new ideas, new iterations of ideas. You know, people are already talking about liquid staking DeFi summer. It's coming up, right? And we're seeing a lot of ETH, you know, going into back stable coins and going into different protocols and being used in DeFi. And that, of course, creates new leverage in the system that will need to be unwound at some point. But that's for later to talk about, I suppose. But it's interesting to look at some of these older players like Solana, right? So you're bullish on Solana. And it's interesting because we will see these new players come, and we're seeing a lot of new blockchains come out, whether it's Aptos or Sui or whatever else the flavor of the week is. But it's hard to get traction in this space. It's hard to actually build user base and all this infrastructure and the dApps and stuff like that. And it's a lot easier for someone, whether it be Solana or Avalanche or Polygon, who already has that, to be well positioned for the next market cycle. So it's pretty interesting. Are there any others aside from Solana that you've been keeping an eye on?
I keep an eye on a lot. I mean, I still own some XRP, for example. I still own stuff, you know, Matic, interesting. You know, there's the Arbitrum and the layer twos. You know, how's that going to play out? That's an interesting space. I've got a stronger thesis on Solana, less strong on others. I'm very interested in Sui and what they can do because, you know, the technology is very empowering. And Aptos, you know, that's a very interesting application, different type of chain. So let's see again. But as you said, it's all well and good to have the best technology in the world. You need to both have a community that is active and growing, and you need to have applications being built. You know, so like ICP didn't really go anywhere because some reason they didn't get either of those two things combined together.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act for cryptocurrency projects. And you've seen so many of these that have had, great technology, but nobody cares. Or people care, but there's nothing there, right? And it's really finding the combination. Yeah, because a lot of projects with nothing, and Doge being the greatest example, and yet there's a massive follower base. Yep.
And then there's a bunch of others that are amazing technology that does everything and no community whatsoever. And so it's a very different world than most other things.
It really, really is. It's quite fascinating to see how it can work in crypto sometimes. And now, look, we've already mentioned a few different coins, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, on down the way here. You're somebody who's kind of full-time in the investing space. So in total in your portfolio, this is an interesting question. Total in your portfolio, how many cryptocurrencies do you actually own? And how many cryptocurrencies would you actually suggest for your average retail investor to be holding?
So I've tried various permutations and combinations of this. And I've had broad baskets of stuff. But what happens with the broad basket for me is I don't focus on any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So some stuff pumps and I don't take profits, and other stuff, it's not big enough, so it just falls and you don't notice it. So I actually find I operate better with concentrated bets.
Mm-hmm.
So really, yes, I've still got a small basket of stuff that I own, maybe 5 or 6. Really, it's all in 2. It's all in ETH and Solana. And then I have a bunch of NFTs on top. And I think that's a relatively safe bet of ETH with a slightly riskier bet of Solana, but not too risky. And I actually, I thought long and hard about this in the last bull market, and I thought it is too complicated a world now, and you have to be too technical and you need to be on top of too many things. This is not a Bitcoin ETH only world. So I actually started a asset management firm called Exponential Age Asset Management, which is a fund of hedge funds that invests in digital asset hedge funds, because those guys, it's their job to find the small token that goes up 500x.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can't do that. I just don't have the time or the experience, but it's their job. So the idea is to create a vehicle, a fund-of-fund vehicle, to allow investors, high net worth investors, family offices, institutions, to have a broad, diversified portfolio of hedge funds that can manage that side of the equation. Because I just realized I'm just not smart enough. As you know, it's so time consuming. You can go down any rabbit hole in this space and it'll consume 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I've become more focused, more concentrated, use hedge funds for the other side of it. If you're happy to manage a broad, equally weighted basket, you can do that too. I tried it. I just couldn't do it. I just didn't focus on any of it. And so I just didn't do a good job with it.
I really feel what you're saying on concentrated bets, and I've had times my portfolio has been so out of control with so many damn tokens, and you're right, you make all those mistakes, you don't take profits, things fall off to the side, and you just don't even know what the hell is going on. And actually having more concentrated bets can really make a lot more sense for the average investor, because look, if we get the market cap up to, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trillion in the next bull run, it's not really going to matter so much which particular coins you're invested in. They're all going to pump.
You have to realize that's a psychology game, because you're always worried that some other guy, that Lark's portfolio is better than Raoul's portfolio. And I'm like, Lark's going to make more money. And, I'm an idiot. What you need to do is stick with what you've got. As you said, you've got the tailwind of a secular bull market. Now, the advice I do give some people like adrenaline. They like to trade. In that case, keep 80% locked away on your ledger device or wherever you keep it, and then keep yourself a small portfolio of 10% or 20% where you can be a filthy degen and trade anything you want. You can hold as much Pepe as you want. You can blow up. You can do whatever. And that can appease that FOMO thing, because you can always tell yourself the lie that you're going to make this 10% worth more than the rest of the portfolio because you're the best trader in the world. You won't. You'll lose most of your money, but at least you're not screwing it up.
Yeah, that's I think pretty solid advice. Keep the play money separate from the long-term stuff. Now, I want to talk about NFTs real quick, because you've been big on NFTs for a while, and I feel like we've recently got to this crushing bottom for the NFT bear market. I mean, and that I think was largely precipitated by the Azuki drop, and they basically resold the same NFTs. I'm not an expert on the Azuki situation by any means, but it definitely was a catalyst that really made people extra bearish on NFTs when NFTs were already down quite a bit. Now, I saw the other day, did you buy a few more NFTs? And what's your thoughts on NFTs, and what do you think for the future of NFTs?
So I have been slowly